Support comes from Gemma, architects, planners, and designers seeking to bring joy to their clients and communities. Details at gemastl.com.
From the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this is The Gateway. It's Thursday, March 26th. I'm Abby Larico. 6 years ago, an EF3 tornado hit an area of Nashville, Tennessee that is much like the area of St. Louis that was devastated by the May 16, 2025 storm. St. Louis and Nashville are cities on opposite trajectories, but there are recovery lessons to be learned.
If you build it just for one specific, like people coming in, they're just as quick to leave.
STLPR's Rachel Lippmann takes us to Nashville for that story, coming up after this news on The Gateway. It's an unofficial holiday in the city of St. Louis. Baseball is back at Busch Stadium. Opening day for the Cardinals is this afternoon, and tens of thousands of people are expected to head downtown for today's game. Inside the stadium, fans will notice a lot of changes, and I'm not just talking about the new guys on the field. Among the new food and drink options are an all-you-can-eat and drink ticket, starting as low as $29. There will also be a pop-up concession stand featuring local food trucks that will rotate on a monthly basis. Outlining their safety plans for around the stadium ahead of the season, St. Louis police say one area where they'll be focusing is preventing car break-ins. Mitch McCoy, the department's spokesperson, says if something does happen, officers need to know about it immediately.
Actually, it's mission critical to the police department that if a car is broken into, if something is stolen, we need to know about it.
Police also recommend avoiding scammers by only parking in authorized lots and garages. The big question for folks at home has been how to watch the game. The Cardinals say anyone who lives in the region will be able to watch on their traditional cable, satellite, or streaming provider. On Charter, the games will be on Channel 233 in the St. Louis region, and on Comcast, fans can watch on Channel 1261. The other channels won't be announced until later this morning, a few hours before first pitch. Today's game against the Tampa Bay Rays starts at 3:15. About 1,000 kids are already on Missouri's wait list for childcare assistance, less than a month after it opened. Jody Fortino reports.
The state's education department implemented a waitlist for the child care subsidy program after facing an increasing demand for services that surpassed the available amount of funding appropriated by lawmakers. Carla Esslinger is the state's commissioner of education. She says the waitlist is a problem because she wants to serve every eligible child.
But there's always a silver lining as well, because actually what happens, we blew our budget. We're serving more kids than what we estimated to serve.
Missouri lawmakers are proposing repealing $51 million for the child care subsidy program. Both legislative chambers are in budget negotiations until mid-May. I'm Jody Fortino.
St. Louis Public Schools announced plans earlier this month to scale back a program that serves elementary and middle school students who recently moved to the U.S. Now, as St. Louis Public Radio's Rebecca Thiel reports, the district says it will work to find new positions for staff at Nahed Chapman New American Academy.
The academy's principal recommends it become a program within Malamphy School in the Shaw neighborhood. Human resources officials say they'll give staff a list of open positions within the district and note their preferences. Placements will be based on seniority. It's not clear whether or not there are enough vacancies to support all of New American Academy staff. Some board members expressed regret that fear around immigration has led to declining enrollment in the academy. Secretary Brian Marston says he knows students who were in the program and that it meant a lot to them.
I wish the world were different.
The district also recommends the board use the academy's current building for special education services. The board expects to finalize changes to the program at its meeting next month. I'm Rebecca Thiel, St. Louis Public Radio.
New data shows about 365,000 Missourians signed up for Affordable Care Act coverage before enrollment ended in January. That's roughly 10% less than last year. Harvard University marketplace policy researcher Rachel Swindle says that drop could have long-term effects.
What we do know is that people who are the most price sensitive are younger, healthier people. As those younger, healthier people exit the marketplace because their premiums are going up, the risk pool gets sicker. And more expensive to cover from the insurance company's perspective.
She says enrollment numbers could fall even more in the coming weeks. That's because many people were automatically re-enrolled and are still within the grace period to pay their premiums. Some may drop coverage once they see the higher costs. In states that run their own marketplaces, early data shows a spike in cancellations compared to last year. Missouri's final numbers are still pending. It seems many St. Charles County residents are behind on filing certain tax paperwork. The county says it mailed a second reminder to more than 52,000 people to assess their personal property. That includes things like cars, motorcycles, campers, boats, and farm equipment. The county assessor says having personal property information ensures that residents are taxed fairly. The personal property assessment form was due at the beginning of this month. The county says it will start penalizing residents who haven't filed by May 1st. Residents of a Missouri town will soon be able to breathe a little easier. As St. Louis Public Radio's Sarah Fenton reports, a wrecked truck carrying tofu had been stinking up the community.
Crews have finally begun to clean up the wreck near the town of Jerome. The operator of the semi drove off the road more than 3 weeks ago near mile marker 172 on Interstate 44. The truck's load, consisting at least partially of boxes of tofu, became pungent as temperatures rose. The Missouri Department of Transportation contracted with a towing company that finally hauled the truck from its smelly resting spot earlier this week. MoDOT Central District Communications Manager Marcia Johnson confirmed the truck and the trailer have been removed.
The crew is working to clean up the rest of the debris from the crash, and they hope to have everything wrapped up by the end of the week.
She said coordinating with the carrier's insurance had caused the holdup. I'm Sarah Fenton, St. Louis Public Radio.
Two people renowned for serving looks and music on the queer scene are coming to St. Louis as special guests at this year's Alt Ball. Organizers told St. Louis Public Radio's Lucretia Wembley that tickets have sold out, but there are still opportunities to participate.
The icon!
Fashion artist Utica Queen from RuPaul's Drag Race and independent recording artist Lady Stout will be the special guests at this year's fashion show. The Alt Ball is set for May 15th in the Grand Center Arts District. Ballroom legends will strut the runway and dozens of local and international designers will showcase their original pieces. Halliday Douglas is a co-founder of Alt Ball.
It's about belonging. It's about showing up as self. So we try to create a space that facilitates that through show and performance and obviously fun.
Alt Ball organizers say they're still seeking volunteers and welcome new sponsors. I'm Lucretia Wembley, St. Louis Public Radio.
Six years ago this month, an EF3 tornado cut a 60-mile path across Nashville, Tennessee, and surrounding counties. Among the hardest hit areas was North Nashville. Like North St. Louis, it's the historic heart of the city's Black community. St. Louis Public Radio's Rachel Lippmann recently traveled to Tennessee to find out the lessons that St. Louis leaders can learn from Nashville's recovery.
Early in the morning of March 3rd, 2020, Mary Strickland woke up to use the bathroom in her family's home in North Nashville.
Something I don't usually do is look at my phone. I looked at the phone and it said warning. And as soon as I looked at it, I heard the train. And I got down on the floor.
Seconds later, the tornado blew the second story off the home Strickland shared with members of her family. Everyone escaped unscathed. The path forward for Strickland was clear. The home had been in the 85-year-old's family for nearly 8 decades.
This was ours, and this is where we was coming back.
Strickland's insurance policy covered the cost of reconstruction. The family moved back into the 2,200-square-foot home about a year after the storm. But not everyone had the means to make the same choice. On a cloudy morning last month, the Reverend Alicia Haddock drives down 23rd Avenue.
It was one of the more chaotic, devastating streets in terms of, what happened during the March 3rd, 2020 tornadoes. It was basically decimated.
Haddock traveled a similar path in the days after the storm in her role as the head of a local social services agency. She realized very quickly that many longtime residents did not have adequate insurance.
They felt they had to make really quick choices because of the developers that kind of swooped down on this area.
Haddock parks her SUV on the side of the road and stares at two houses. One is a green brick single-story building. Its neighbor to the north is 2 stories tall with a black-sided exterior.
We know that something happened here because this home is 3 times the size of the home beside it.
Records show the Black House was built on the site of one damaged in the tornado. It's now a 4-bed, 3-bath property with an appraised value of about $590,000. The house it replaced had never been worth more than $95,000. Haddock has deep roots in North Nashville. She says it's a place people don't leave without a reason.
And so that tornado really it just didn't uproot trees, right? It uprooted lives, it uprooted culture, right? And it uprooted the very fabric of who we are.
Advocacy groups like the Equity Alliance had been trying for years to counteract the impact of explosive growth on longtime Nashville residents. Their work took on new urgency after the tornado. The Equity Alliance's co-founder, Charlene Oliver, now a Democratic state senator from Nashville, says drones were flying over the hardest-hit neighborhoods within hours of the storm.
And that really alarmed me because we started getting reports that people were getting handed business cards of people, developers driving around saying, if you want to sell your property, I'm here.
North Nashville's housing market was heating up even before the tornado. The median sales price for a single-family home had gone up more than 35% between 2016 and 2020. It would jump another 21% between 2020 and 2021. The Equity Alliance and other groups launched an educational campaign to tell North Nashville residents they had alternatives to selling. The COVID-19 pandemic made additional outreach and follow-up difficult, but Oliver says the effort helped people stay in their homes and retain that generational wealth. Groups also stepped up to provide funding to help people make minor home repairs, but like in St. Louis, the need far outweighed the supply. Donna Burks' grandparents purchased a home in North Nashville in 1957. She and her mother moved in after her parents divorced when Burks was a child.
My grandmother, my grandfather, and my mother passed away in that house. So my weird goal was to also be drug out of that house. I didn't make it that far.
Burks had let her insurance policy lapse. Then the tornado put a hole in her roof.
And when I tried to get back to the insurance, they were like, you got to fix that.
Burks says she tried to access every home repair program she could find, but never qualified. The problems compounded and the house became unlivable. Burks sold it to a developer last July for $234,000. She's back to renting at 60 years old because she can't afford to buy.
It gave us a piece of independence. Like, if nothing else, like when my children would get in trouble, it was like, just come home. I don't care what's going on. And so now I don't have that.
The developer rehabbed the property and put it on the market for more than $500,000. It sat for more than 50 days and is now listed for rent for $2,800 a month. That's becoming more common in North Nashville, says Greater Nashville Realtors president Jack Gaughan. The neighborhood still has a reputation for high crime, and things like full-service grocery stores remain in short supply. He says any city rebuilding after a natural disaster needs to make sure that residential and commercial development happen in tandem.
It has to be built for the residents that are already there and that are going to continue to be there, because migration happens so quickly both ways that if you build it just for one specific, like people coming in, they're just as quick to leave.
Burks says local officials should have done more to limit the pressure tactics developers can use.
I would get a stack of letters like, let me buy your property, let me buy your house, let me buy your... And I was like, nope, don't even... They would call me on the phone and I would yell, like, how dare you call me? I'll call you when I want to sell the property.
Property owners in North St. Louis report similar tactics. Oliver, the Tennessee state senator, tried twice to pass legislation that would penalize developers who try to contact homeowners more than once in a calendar year. Oliver adds that nonprofit leaders need to meet before a natural disaster to make sure everyone knows each other and are prepared to work together.
You had the siloed coalition that had access to the resources, but you had this other sort of siloed coalition of grassroots organizations that were not connected to the establishment. But we had connections to the people.
She says the lack of communication among nonprofits and between nonprofits and the city meant resources did not always get distributed. The Reverend Haddock echoes Oliver's call for pre-storm planning with a diverse group at the table.
What is it that specific communities need? Because all communities and neighborhoods aren't created equal. We understand that, we know that, and so really kind of going in and having that really foundation of this sense of equity.
She says understanding that different neighborhoods will have different needs for recovery will make recovery possible for everyone. In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm Rachel Lippmann, St. Louis Public Radio.
Our Fred Ehrlich edited that piece. The Gateway is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, a listener-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis. Music by Ryan McNeely of Adult Fur. I'm Abby Larico, and from the St. Louis Public Radio Newsroom, this has been The Gateway.